HR gets real nervous when employees ask these 5 questions because it forces transparency. And the sooner that employees understand how to use these 5 questions to their advantage, watch how things would change. The reality is that HR is not your friend, and their main job is to mitigate risk, even if that risk is coming from you, the employee. So if you're preparing for an HR meeting, you want to listen closely. Hi, I'm Andrew and I worked in corporate America as a recruiter for 10 years, and I'm trusted by over 140,000 professionals, so be sure to join the community. So question number 5, can you show me where the policy is written? This question makes HR very nervous because suddenly opinions doesn't matter anymore. The facts do. And what I noticed that most employees tend to miss is they feel like the policies are not there to work for them. Because the same policies that's written by the company also needs to be abided by the company. And the sooner you learn how to use the work policies to your advantage, the better things will be. So imagine this, your manager says, that's company policy, and you say, okay, where is it? Can you show me? Is it in the handbook? Is it in my offer letter? Or is it something that people keep repeating, but no one ever questions it? You'll be surprised how many policies are just traditions that are masked as policies. Or simply they're just a manager's preference that's used for their advantage and not yours. Or even worse, rules are only applied to certain employees, aka favoritism. When you politely ask to see written policies, watch how quickly everything will change. Because if it's not documented, it becomes harder to defend. And HR knows that. So I want you to do something right now. Locate your employee manual and find a policy that relates to your particular case with HR. And use real life examples to tie that policy to your situation. For example, let's just say that you're currently being bullied. I want you to find a policy within the manual that states something about code of conduct. And last time I checked, being bullied is not a good proper representation of the company. So therefore, it violates that written policy. So you see how that works? Always remember, you always want to be 10 steps ahead. Number 4, has this policy been applied to everyone consistently? Because if it hasn't, now we're exposing the favoritism that you're experiencing in the workplace. And that is something that most employees rarely ever think about. The issue isn't always about the rule itself, it's about when the rule's not always being applied equally to everyone else. For example, let's just say that you were denied for remote work. Okay, was everyone else denied for that same exact opportunity? Or let's just say that you got written up for attendance due to something out of your control. Let's just say someone else that's always late. Are they getting written up for that same situation as well? Because one thing I know to be true in these workplaces, favoritism is a thing. People will get different experiences and still work in the same company. And by asking this specific question, you're able to call that out, while still remaining very professional and sticking to the facts. Because if it's someone with the same title, same pay, same department, we should all get the same sort of treatment, if that makes sense. It's all about consistency, and inconsistency creates uncomfortable conversations in an HR meeting. And the goal is not to come off rude or know-it-all, you're just simply once again sticking to the facts, and that's something that HR cannot deny. Now let's be clear, a legitimate HR department, they will welcome this particular question, but a toxic one, they'll get very nervous. So quick question, have you ever asked HR for something and the room got immediately quiet? I want you to tell me what happened in the comments, because I'm curious to know, has anyone ever experienced this particular situation and how quickly those body language changes? Now let's get into the other questions that make companies even more uncomfortable. Question number 3, can I get that in writing? Oh yes, this is a big one. Because it's one thing they could say something to you over the phone or in person, and they could just kind of disappear or not hold their end of the bargain. But once you get it in writing, everything changes for the betterment. Because those verbal conversations disappear. Those friendly in-person conversations disappear. But once you have everything in writing, from places, times, timestamps, whatever, that is a permanent document. And that document is here to protect you. And also, this is exactly why I created the Workplace Palm Protection Manual, so employees always know what to document and protect themselves moving forward. Because your protection is your main responsibility. And written documentation creates accountability on both ends. Have you ever noticed how confident people sound until you ask them to send that follow-up email? Suddenly is, I'll get back to you, or let me check more into that. Because written conversation has consequences. And if someone isn't comfortable putting something in writing, now you have to ask yourself, why? What are they hiding? Who are they really trying to protect? Because it can't be me. Because if you really want to protect me, you will understand the importance of having something permanently solidified in a written document. And sometimes employees are afraid to ask for things in writing from HR due to retaliation. Or you simply don't know enough about the company or its policies to do so. And unfortunately, if you're working with a toxic HR department, they know that. So always remember this one thing. If it's not in writing, it never existed. I don't care what they promise. I don't care what they're saying. Once again, it has to be in writing. And this is why question number 3, I personally feel, is the most important one. Okay, now let's get into question number 2. What specific reason was this decision based on? Notice the word that I said, specific. Once again, specific. Not its business needs. Not is organizational reconstructuring. Not is my favorite one, a leadership decision. Specific. Was it a performance metric? What documented behavior? What measured criteria? Whether it's a promotion, a deny, raise, or even a termination. Specific questions require specific answers. And as an employee that's being tried by HR, you have the right to demand specific answers. Because those vague decisions become a lot harder to defend when you're asking very specific questions. Now, it's going to require on your end to be very calm, cool, and collected. Because oftentimes when we go into these HR meetings unprepared, and you're trying to get something specific out of them, you may lose yourself in the emotions. Because I get it, right? No one likes to feel like you're being disrespected or someone is tarnishing your reputation right in your face. Especially if you didn't do anything wrong. Imagine going to a workplace, you want to collect a check, provide for your family, and now you're being called into HR for something you didn't do. By all means, you do have the right to crash out, but in these settings, you have to remain professional. And being very specific, that is the key to getting exactly that. And finally, the number one question, what are my options if I disagree with this decision? And this is a question that many employees don't tend to really ask or even though they could ask. Because at that moment, most employees just assume that the conversation is over. It isn't. Can you appeal it? Can you request another review? Can you submit additional documentation that could support your case? Can another HR rep be involved in this situation? Can leadership review this decision? Most employees don't ask because they assume they don't have choices after a decision has been made by HR. And sometimes, let's be clear, you don't. But most of the times, you probably do. And no one really talks about these conversations. And this is exactly why communities like this matter. We need to be informed of all of our options. Because informed employees are hard to pressure to accept decisions that we don't agree with. Or decisions that you don't fully understand. Here's what I want you to remember. These questions aren't about starting fights with HR. They're about creating clarity, understanding, and getting to a true resolution in your situation. And the best HR professionals, they won't feel threatened by these questions. They will welcome it and give you real answers. Because in their minds, you're trying to understand and appreciate the process. But if someone gets very defensive, if someone's avoiding answering your questions straight on, or if they simply refuse to explain, that also tells you something too. The workplace isn't just about working hard, it's about knowing your rights, understanding company policies, and asking respectful questions when something doesn't feel right. Because sometimes the smartest career move isn't about having all the answers. It's knowing the right questions to ask. But we're not done. There's actually more questions you could ask. So subscribe, follow, and comment part 2.